So as you guys know, we've been doing a lot of CCB audits recently, and I'm getting ready to speak to some of our clients about their best ways to prepare the next time the CCB comes in to audit them. So I wanted to pick your brains on what are some things they could do to be better prepared when they get that next audit notice.
I think the maintenance of their logs, waste logs, harvest logs for cultivation, production logs for the production facilities, packaging logs for both, very important. Consistently always asked by the CCB for them, keeping those together.
That's true, and then not just the keeping of them, you know which logs you're supposed to keep, but make sure that they're also as filled out as they're going to be. So sometimes we've seen clients either just leaving things off. So a lot of times we see for visitor logs, people do the time in, but then they don't do the time out. So as you go through the year, just make sure that they're as full as they're supposed to be. And then just keeping good practices. So recently we've seen that audits have been asking for security malfunction logs. So you know throughout the year whenever you've had incident reports and things like that. So just once you have those incident reports and you turn them in, updating your malfunction logs as you're going so that it all matches when you submit it to the CCB.
Yeah, and I think our clients have and the licensees need to learn that although the regulations don't number out 1, 2, 3 for all logs, that there are regulation requirements of what must be in the different logs, right? Like for a harvest log, for instance, although you can't Google or search the word harvest log and it say, here's the 5 things that must be maintained, the regulations do have specific things that have to be in a harvest log. Or, a visitor log, I think the regulations are more clear, time in, time out, purpose of visit, but things like a harvest log, a clone log, or a production log, when you search the regulations, those words don't come up, but yet they are required by regulation and there's specific things to be in there. So making sure, yes, you're maintaining the logs, you're filling them out completely, but you check with your attorneys on what should be in those logs.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about logs. Anything else?
The security screenshots comes up. I think a way to help our clients can help themselves is consistently reviewing their time, date and time stamps, making sure that the camera angles, there's no blocked views or anything, because when they're asking for a specific date and time that's in the past, there's not many changes you can do at that rate. So, to know that it's compliant every day, you're really never up against it in that sense.
Yeah, I remember we got several audits right around daylight savings time, right?
Yep.
And timestamps were off because people's camera systems didn't update with the time change.
And
so
that split, I haven't really looked at the date and time stamp in the last day, and now you're up, they're all wrong. And you see some that are a few minutes off on one camera to the other camera, and just, overall being aware of the status of your system.
Yeah, I think so.
I think another good thing would be to learn from the past. So people are, clients, establishments, license holders, they're audited periodically. So if you were audited last year and you know that X, Y, and Z was an issue, then implement practices to then correct that throughout the year. Or if you receive any sort of request for deliverables or statements of deficiencies throughout the year from the CCB, take into account what they noted and how you fixed it, and then just continue on with those practices.
Yeah, I think that's right? Implementing good procedures and maintaining those procedures is critical. And speaking of procedures, I think a common thing we've seen is people forget to update their standard operating procedures. Throughout the year, the CCB is changing the regulations, and that we know that your operating procedures have to be updated to reflect that. So if you have operating procedures that last updated 2018, you probably have non-compliant standard operating procedures.
Yeah.
And I noticed in the most recent audits, the CCB has been asking, when were your standard operating procedures last updated? That makes it easy for them to know, are these compliant, including our most recent regulation changes?
Yeah.
What about other records, such as like signed manifests. I remember for me, the ones I've done, that's been a huge issue of getting copies and maintaining copies of signed manifests.
Yeah, they're going to need to basically chase down the signed manifest. If you're not the distributor and thus having the end copies of everything, you need to go find that. It should be signed in 2 places, and they're going to ask, and if you submit them and they're unexecuted, they're going to come back and say, please provide the executed copies. And to touch on Jess's point of, learning from the past, CCB is also taking your plans of correction and coming back to the facilities being like, you said you were going to do this. You said you were going to contact the distributor and get your executed manifest within a certain amount of time. Here we are 5 days after in that time frame, and now you're not complying with the plan of correction, you're not complying with your SOPs, you're not complying with the need for an executed manifest. It kind of snowballs on you. So to take that and move forward and best practice.
Learn from your mistakes.
Precisely.
Yeah. So I think what we've summed up is know what your requirements are, maintain your records, your logs, your operating procedures, and then learn from your mistakes, right? If you've gone through an audit and you missed something, like Jess said, come back next year and be ready for it. Or like you said, if you get deficiencies, make sure you're following your own plans of correction so you're ready for the next one.
Yep. And ask questions.
But maybe not
to the CCB.
Not to the CCB. To your compliance counsel or your director of compliance, but make sure you're asking questions so you know what you're supposed to do.
Yep.
Well, thanks, guys.
You're welcome.